Welcome to episode 68 of the Forward from 50 podcast, where we interview people over 50 who are pursuing new direction for their lives. It's an opportunity for men and women to tell their stories, their way, in their own words. I'm Greg Gerber, the founder of Forward from 50, and your host for today's show. Today, we'll be speaking with a woman from Alabama who became an inventor after envisioning a tool to make gardening easier, especially for seasoned citizens. Michele Morgan is the founder of God's Way Enterprises. Today, she produces a variety of online content, books, and journals. However, she initially found a renewed sense of purpose by designing the Max-Bit garden tool. Several years ago, when her daughters were still at home and Michele was raising them as a single parent, she decided to do gardening for seasoned citizens as a way to make extra money on the weekends. Her clients would often send her to a store to retrieve flats containing dozens of plants which needed to be replanted in their gardens. But Michele found it tedious and difficult to always use a trowel to break the ground. It was also difficult to arrange the plants to create the unique designs her customers desired. One day, out of the blue, Michele had an idea to develop a tool that could attach to a common electric drill to create a perfect hole to plant something. That began a learning process that changed her life. To tell us her story of being inspired to create a tool that makes gardening easier and more enjoyable for others, please welcome Michele Morgan to the show. Thanks for joining me today, Michele. I really appreciate the time. You're the first inventor I have ever interviewed for Forward from 50. So tell us how you came up with the idea for the Max-Bit. It looks really cool.
Thank you, Greg, for this opportunity. I love this. I've worked with so many individuals over the years that I am convinced that's how we make a difference. It's just each one reaching one. So this opportunity gives me the opportunity to talk to your audience about some of the things that God has actually put in my lap. I'm going to tell you the short story, but it definitely involves God. So I was a single parent for many years, raising two girls, and was working in a Christian school, a small school. It didn't pay much, but it met the need. But as they were growing up, their needs grew as well. And they would come to me and they would say, "Mommy, I need this. Mommy, I need that." And the funds just weren't stretching. I always loved outdoors, working in the yard, working in a garden. So I thought, okay, I had a bright idea. I'll start working on the weekend and I'll do gardening for other people. So I did. I started doing that on Fridays and Saturdays. I would seek out older clients that still loved yard work, but they couldn't get on their knees. They couldn't do it anymore because of their age. So I began to do that. And I had certain clients, customers that would send me to garden centers, and I would come back with these flats and flats of flowers, just dozens and dozens. And so I would use the trowel, whatever was available in the market to plant those with. And it just didn't satisfy me. I would plant them and step back and look at it and think, "Oh, it doesn't look right," because they would want some type of design in the bed. And I would come away almost every time and think there has got to be a better way. There's got to be a better idea to get this done, right? That's the thought we have as inventors. Now, I made this comment before on another platform that my father and both grandfathers were quite entrepreneurial. So my thinking, I think, was passed on through their DNA. After doing this for probably a month or 2 or 3, not months and years, I was sitting in church on a Wednesday night. I had actually probably worked that weekend and was tired. I had no idea who was teaching or preaching and what was being said, but I was there. And as I'm sitting there, this idea, I don't know how else to describe it, Greg, but this idea just dropped in my lap. I could see it like in a screen before me. And all I could think to myself was, well, that will work. And I began to sketch it out on the notepad that I had. That was the beginning of it. It was an idea that really, a witty invention, they call it sometimes in the church world. So from there, it was a process, quite a process. I won't go into all the details, but if any of your listeners have any idea at all and want to know the process, we can talk about how they can get in touch, and I would love to work with them. I've done patent consulting for a long time. So we prototyped, wrote my patent. We got the patent approved. It takes quite a long time. And then we began to test it in the market. And once we proved the market and proved the pricing that the market would bear, we found a manufacturer locally until we outgrew that manufacturer. And now we manufacture in North America. And it's a lot of work, but it has been so rewarding. And after a season of working through the process, I remember sitting alone with God in my quiet time and saying, why did you? Because it was doing so well. And I had so many people that were like, wow, this worked. And I think, of course it works. It came from heaven. And I just heard the Lord say to me as I asked him, why don't you give this to me? Because there's so many people in the world that have ideas. And I really felt like, Greg, that he said to me, because I want you to fund the gospel all over the world. And he knew my heart was missions. My heart has been missions since I was 14 years old. And that's partly what I've been able to do.
I love that story. You're absolutely right. The best ideas often come out of the blue when you're least expecting them, and you know that the Holy Spirit is involved. It's like a little nudge. Have you ever considered this or move in this direction? They just give you a vision, what's from God, and he's behind it. Go out in faith and do it. So congratulations for doing that. Yeah. So describe what the MaxBit does, the MaxBit.
The name also came from the Lord because it's a large bit. If I could have had one with me, I could have shown you. I have it here locally in our warehouse. And so we ship from here in Alabama. Our warehouse is here, but our manufacturer is in Canada. It is a large bit. We've got 4 different sizes and an extension. It fits on the end of a household drill and or a higher powered drill, depending on what soil you're going to drill into. So it was the design of the bit itself that allowed me to patent it. A utility patent, and it has to be unique in its design for you to be able to get a patent. So the blades are angled, and at the bottom is a small hip, and the bottom of the bit is flat. So when you put that, I'm trying to think, I have one behind me. I hate to turn around and look, but we made a silver and a gold one because he is more precious than silver and gold. But when you put it on a drill, it goes down in the ground and it makes a perfectly formed hole, building the hole down. So when you pull the bit out, there's no dirt in the hole because the trowel or an auger actually will loosen the soil, but it leaves the dirt in the hole. So you can pull that bit out. You have a perfectly formed hole where you can just pop that plant out of the container and put it right down in, and you can design your flower bed. It's amazing. And the drill does the work, and the bit just formed the hole.
Now, do you have any experience in mechanical engineering or anything like that caused you to come up with this design?
Oh, that's the blessing of it,
So it literally was out of the blue. God gave you the design or showed you what it would look like, and then you had to find somebody who would design the mold, I would assume, and do that. How'd you connect with those folks?
Correct. A lot of it was prayer. Absolutely. Okay, Lord, what do I do with this idea? So I had a family member that was versed in CAD drawing, computer animated drawing. So the first thing we did is we had to draw it to scale so that we could actually take it from the drawing, to actually a prototype so someone could build it. I found a very local, not really a manufacturer, but they agreed to weld it, to put it together. So we did about 20. They were very costly, but we had to prototype it to be sure it would work. It's one thing to see it and to have it on paper, but the next thing you have to build it. So now they've got plastic molding and things that were just coming into fruition when I first got the idea. I'll refer to we a lot. It's me and the Lord. Right. We prototyped it, and then I went around in my local area, actually all over the state of Mississippi, with the prototype, with buckets of different kinds of soil. I went to garden centers. I would call and make appointments, went up and down the state to garden centers, places where I had bought flowers before, and we test marketed it. And I had to see if it was something that their customers would even want. So we proved it in our own backyard. We did local garden shows. And when the ones that we had manufactured actually flew off the shelf, I knew that we were onto something. So I've been doing garden shows and trade shows probably for 15 years. We travel all over doing that, meeting people. I love the one-on-one contact. I've got lots of customers, a whole file cabinet full of not just wholesale customers, but retail customers as well. So yeah, it was a step-by-step. And in the middle of all that, Greg, I discovered an inventors group. We had a local inventors group, and I joined that group because, like you said, I had no mechanical experience. And so I would go to these meetings, I think it was once a week, and I would listen to all the patent legalese, all the things that they would talk about. And at first, it just went over my head. I had no experience at all in this. And I'm like, okay, I would listen and listen. I had to make myself available, right, to learn. It was a big learning curve at first. And I was able to do all of that through this local inventors group. I think we were actually established in this particular city for about 5 years. Actually became the president of that group over time, brought different speakers in to teach the group more and more. As I was learning, I wanted them to learn as well. So the Inventors Group was a big part of that. It was a big kickstart. And then we worked with local universities. We had 2 different universities within that state that sponsored inventor seminars for 2-3 days, and different ones would speak, and we'd bring our product and demonstrate it. We got lots of feedback from other inventors that already had their product on the market. So there's plethora of ways to get that done. And today it's easier than ever before because we didn't have Google search at the time. This was in the early 2000s. So all of this that you and I have access to now was just beginning to happen.
That's neat. And I like God brought people to you, or brought you to the people to help you advance it to the next step. Were you worried about somebody taking your idea and claiming it as their own, or just knocking it off and manufacturing it in China and having millions and millions of them sold here in America?
That is a real thing, although there's quite a bit of protection when you have a patent.
Okay.
When you have something that you can fold, that's actually not that's three-dimensional, it's really good to go ahead and get a patent. Unless, we can talk about that later, but yes, I was concerned in between, but there's different steps to that as well. So one of the things that you do, once you get an idea and you feel like it's going to work, there's a process called a provisional patent. And the provisional patent through the USPTO, the United States Patent and Trademark Office, gives you a year. So you fill out that provisional patent. It used to be I think it's about $95, and that secures your idea for a year. You have 1 year, so then you can get out and actually prototype and demonstrate what it is that you have. You can start contacting customers, but you have a year to get your patent written.
Okay.
And so that gives you that protection. And there's really a lot of protection in America. Have I had Chinese companies contact me over the years? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. They would love to manufacture it over there. But of course, they would just steal it and run with it.
Right.
So you have got to have discernment in that. You want at least a North American manufacturer. I've had some friends that have had their product manufactured in Mexico as well, but that's still part of North America. Mm-hmm. So your patent gives you a lot of protection, and your patent's good for 20 years. So you've got that 20-year span to get it on the market, let people know the product is good, that it worked, and spread the word.
I like that. I was unaware that you had that 1 year provisional period so that you can patent the idea. So it's yours and nobody can really take it, but now you can share the idea with manufacturers and people who can bring it to life. How did you get the funding for this? As a single mom, it doesn't sound like you would be wealthy just independently.
No, that's another great question. And I hadn't really even thought about answering that question on this interview, but that's a great question. Again, being part of the Inventors Group, this is going to shock you too, but the majority, if not, I was the only female in the group, and probably at that time, because this was 15 years ago, at that time, the majority of the men in the group were probably in their 60s, if not older. And they just took me under their wing and said, come on, darling, we'll help you get anything done you need to get done. And through that Inventors Group, we actually worked with our local state agricultural offices. When you work with some entities like this, it opens up doors because there's the SBA, the Small Business Association, where you can apply for loans. All these are within the state government, not necessarily local, but state government. So I was able to get to know a lot of people that work within the government that love to promote entrepreneurship within the state. And we went before a committee. I put together a PowerPoint, put the product in, and actually did what I would call first phase funding. And I did a pitch before angel investors, and they loved it. And I was only asking, this was some years ago, I was only asking for $10,000. But before I tell you the caveat there, I have to go back. This was before I knew any of those outlets. I reached out to family and friends. I actually put together a letter, mailed it personally, signed it, and said, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to put together an investors meeting. And so I don't remember how I paid for it, but I bought lunch for everyone. I set up a demonstration table in the front, rented a little building. I think it was in the local library, invited everyone to come, put together investor envelopes, and gave them an opportunity to give $100, $500, $1,000, just gave them opportunities to do that. Did the demonstration. We had lunch. Over lunch, they could figure out what they wanted to do. And Greg, in that meeting, you understand, we raised $10,000, which was enough it was a bootstrap. That's what they call that. You bootstrap your way. And so that was how I did it. I just had the tenacity and the perseverance. I believed in what God had given me, that this was something that he wanted out there. I wanted to be able to bless other single women and older people, because we have an extension where you can put that on the tool, you can actually pull your trigger and dig that hole from standing up, so that older people that wanted to garden could still do it. I have lots of older customers still today that love that idea.
I can imagine.
So we bootstrapped the first 10. I went before a committee and I raised the next 10. And then God was so good, just blew on it. It just went crazy. Lots of things along the way. And we paid that loan back in record time. And then just the funding from the sales.
That's one thing I wish more Christian business owners would understand, is that God always funds his assignment. So if he gives you the assignment, gives you the idea and the vision for what it's supposed to do, he's going to make the money appear. It's going to come. You're going to have to work to get it. It's just not going to open up the front door and, oh my goodness, there's a check for $10,000. But he will direct that money to you. It's a funding of the assignment, and he wants you to accomplish it. That's why he makes it happen.
I completely agree. I like to say there's provision in the plan. He gives you the plan. You get it from heaven. It's like his strategy, but then you've got to walk it. And as you're walking it out, the provision will come. Mm-hmm. We have I've traveled overseas quite a bit, and I've noticed that the American culture, quite different from almost any other culture in the world, is lazy in nature. And that laziness, it's not innate. It's not how we're born into laziness, but that laziness comes from the fact that so much materialism. We live in a world of materialism in America. So much is offered to us. It's so easy. And it keeps us from really having that tenacity to stick with something.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to throw that off if we're going to make anything. Because God has a part, as you said. And
when you were soliciting money from the first investors, was that money just given to you, or did you have to give up control of the company or a portion of the profits to the investors?
I did not have to give up any control of the company. It was a loan, and they gave me 3 years to pay the loan back with no interest. So this is money that comes through the state into these investors. Actually, some of it did, but some of it came out of their pocket. Mm-hmm. But that's what they do. They promote entrepreneurship within the state. No, I didn't have to give up anything, and we were able to pay it back early with no interest. Think about that, $10,000 with no interest.
That's
Isn't that amazing?
Incredible. What a gift.
Yes.
Yes, that's super. How many of these devices do you think you've sold over the years?
I should know that, but I have no idea.
Okay.
Thousands.
Thousands? Okay, that's good.
Thousands.
I also like that these other fellows came alongside you. It's just like you were fathered by God, that you needed the information, and he directed people to you with the information you needed at the right time. How cool is that? He did.
Absolutely, he did. And it takes a team. It takes a team. For sure.
Mm-hmm. God is good. You found the initial places to sell the product by going door to door and knocking on doors of the local garden centers and saying, look at this device and here's how it works. And they saw the vision with you and decided to carry it. How long did it take to really catch on?
So let me be clear. Not everybody saw the vision.
Okay.
It's just like any message I think that we have. Some will receive it and some won't. And that's okay. And I had to be okay with that. There were 2 different stores within this particular state that were sister stores. One was run by, the sister one was run by the brother. The sister got the vision just like that, but the brother not so much. They ended up carrying the product. It only took a year. We were on the market for about 9 months, and we went to a Walmart open call. They still do these with Walmart in Bentonville. We went to a Walmart open call, and this was in 2016, 2017. And Walmart put it on their online platform right away. Wow. So we were on Walmart.com for about 2.5 years, which was wonderful. It helped to get it out there. We're no longer there because we didn't meet the quota. We've got to sell thousands to be able to stay on that platform. But that opened the door for a lot of other platforms, online, as well as I continually went to trade shows all over the U.S. as well. Don't mind the online. I think that's great. Just you never get to know your customers. You don't know who's buying your product, which is wonderful. It's great to do that. It helps both ways. But I loved going to trade shows, meeting customers, whether they're both wholesale or retail. So the first year, it really took off that first year once I got that funding, because the funding that I asked for from the angel investors was for marketing. The initial marketing I did on my own. It was the best that I could do. I'm not a marketer. I have an eye for things, but not professionally. So
How'd you learn
hired
that?
some.
Okay. How'd you learn to do marketing then? You said you were going to hire somebody?
So that, again, for your audience, think about marketing students in the local universities. And that's what I did. I hired a local girl in the universities to come. She did one of our initial website. I helped with the logo and the colors. So that initial funding was part of paying her, finding a local printing company that would actually print the print material that we needed. Branding in our world is so important. That was a whole other aspect of this. You've got the product, you've got your stores, you've got the fulfillment, you've got the boxes you've got to buy, but then you've got the branding. It has to look the same. And that makes it more difficult for anybody to knock it off when you've got a specific branding. And of course, we had it patented and we had it trademarked. So all these are processes that are so important if you're going to protect your product.
That is a brilliant strategy to talk to universities, because their marketing departments, their public relations departments, all of the students going through that, when they get into their senior year, they have to do a project in order it's part of their graduation requirements. So you get these young, energetic, creative minds working on your idea or your brand or whatever the case might be. And it's amazing what they come up with. And it only costs you a couple of pizzas as a general rule when you bring the kids together for the initial consultation. Just go to like your local university and the School of Marketing or the School of Public Relations. They might even do it for the art students who are developing brands like logos and things like that, color schemes for your websites, whatever. It's a great resource to be able to tap into. I like also that you're using the resources that you're earning from this, the money and the profits, to fund the missions. What are you trying to do to fund God's kingdom as a result of this invention of yours?
No, I really appreciate that question too. I'm going to need to back up though a couple of years, and I'm going to try to do this in a nutshell so this will make sense to you and to your audience. I have some family members that have been overseas in a particular country for quite some time, and I wanted to join them. So I had gotten to a place where I licensed the product line. I would contract help. We were selling all over the world. We were doing pallets, shipping pallets here, there, and yonder. It was quite a bit of work. But I had a desire all my life to do overseas missions. And I got to a place in my life, and this was over 50. I got to a place in my life where I could do this. And so I searched for a company that I could license the product to. And it turned out that one of my wholesalers actually was interested in licensing the company. Now, what that means is I give them the ability and the authority and I had a manufacturer, for the manufacturer to deliver them. They did all the fulfillment and they collected all the funds. And then at the end of each quarter, they would send me a royalty. And so that's where your royalty fees come in. And of course, we agreed on the royalty percentage, and you get a lawyer involved, but all contracted. So I was able to do that and then actually make plans to join my friends and family overseas to do the work that I had been wanting to do for years. But it was idea. You see, I wanted to do this years ago, was a single parent raising children, couldn't, because my first priority was not necessarily overseas, but it was right there at home with them.
Right.
Got them grown, and now they're walking in their purpose. And then I want to join some of them with that same purpose, which of course was kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did that off and on for about 21 years, Greg. But we've all come back in the country about 2 years ago. So when I came back in the country, I almost had to start all over. So you're catching me in the thick of beginning again, where we are gaining new customers, reaching out into new platforms. Yet I share some of those platforms on the website. Yeah, and then the Lord's increasing our ministry platform, just like what you're doing, Greg. We're doing things online as well.
And I like that. The idea is continuing to bring in the money that's being used to build the kingdom. And when you use the money to build the kingdom, it's amazing. More money comes for you to invest in the kingdom. It's all biblical. It's just you don't build it to get rich. You build it to build the kingdom. And in the process, you have a relatively decent life. and especially if you're using the funds to build the kingdom. I really like that. Are your daughters involved in the business?
They have been. They're both grown with grandchildren as well. So they have been, absolutely. They've worked with me in different businesses since they were probably 5 and 6 years old. So they could run it if they needed to.
So all of your mission work is done overseas. That's where your heart and where your passion is, to help overseas missions. Are you doing anything locally?
So that was where my heart was when we were there, off and on for about 21 years. We still have family and friends that work in different countries that we support. But the Lord shifted all of that, and my season now is pure locally. I know I shared with you before, I work locally with an alcohol and drug recovery program that's very Christ-centered. And so I am very much boots on the ground, very involved in the local church, which is very community-oriented, helping schools. So we reach out to the community in a number of ways. So actually, I guess my focus is back in the States.
It's truly amazing how much work gets done by local nonprofit organizations. And I know that the big organizations that are well-funded with professional marketers and professional fundraisers who can send out mail appeals and things like that, they bring in an enormous amount of money and they do a lot of good. But the local organizations can do so much more with so much less. It seems to me anyway. So that's nice that you're able to help fund them. Now, I understand that you have developed a company, God's Way Enterprises, that is helping to teach people a little bit more about the kingdom. Is that correct?
That's a great elevator pitch. I love that. I'm going to use that, Greg. Back in 2001, I actually developed that company as a C Corp, God's Way Enterprises. The word enterprises means business, but I think it is all-encompassing because for me, it's not just business. It was ministry and mission, because I knew in the beginning that it was the heart of the Father to fund missions through business enterprises. And under that umbrella, that C Corp of God's Way Enterprises, I've been able to do a number of things that I just teach myself. Right? I just love it. We can do that. And if I had to say anything to your female listener, you can do this. And there are people out there that are so willing to help you, right? Don't think that you can't do it because you can. So yes, I've had a website, different ones off and on over the years that have done different things. But since I've come back into the States, and the Lord has really been, but since there's so much potential with online ministry, and you can get to know people, like we're part of a Zoom group where we're really getting to know some individual. I like to do things with purpose and for purpose. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not just going to go somewhere. If the Lord's going to send me somewhere, I'm going to go, now, why are we doing this, Lord? What's the purpose in this? I want to know what his purpose is in getting it done. And he almost always reveals that. So we do. We help. I have a biblical coaching platform there, but also I can help with my experience in education. I went back to school. I've taught in local universities for years and can offer educational tips, business tips, ministry mission tips. We have resources for missions and ministry all over the world. Got some great websites we could point people to. And if I don't know the answers to some of the questions, I could find somebody that does. I love to resource, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. The network is amazing. And
it is.
The power of who we know probably takes us far further than we ever can based on what we know.
I agree.
Yeah. So God's Way Enterprises is developing books, workbooks, and journals. Is that right? Do you have any courses too?
Developing some courses. I did a course back in April, did a 4-week course where I worked with local authors to get them kick-started. They had ideas, maybe they had some notes within a notebook, but that's as far as they had gotten. I did a local course there and really just getting my feet wet with this. The last 2 years, I've written 2 different journals. They were long work that really, I felt like were inspired by the Lord from a plethora of notebook and teachings that I had sat under, just times with the Lord. So I did a full 1-year devotional journal 2 years ago. Last year, I did the 6-month, just spending time with him. I just felt like he gave me these I was supposed to share with friends and family. If anybody else gets them, that's fine. But really, it's just, I love that relational one-on-one. I think it's so important. That's how we build kingdom, I believe. We're working on another series of books. 1 or 2 of them will be out before the year is out. They're quite a bit different. But yes, offering some courses on biblical coaching and teaching. How do we live our life? Greg, if you were to ask me what one thing is most important to me, I would say it's developing character. It's allowing the Holy Spirit to develop godly character in us. And for me, that looks like the fruit of the Spirit. That looks like not just reading it in the Bible, but that looks like how does it jump off the page and how does it live in my life? How do I walk out love? How do I walk out faith? What does that look like? How can I apply that every day? And that's my focus on my recent YouTube. That's my focus on the books that are coming up. I want people to be able to pick it up and go, oh, now I see. I need to make this change.
Exactly. What is topics are like doors? I noticed that on your website.
That's going to be a lead in to the books that I'm writing as well. Oftentimes, maybe this will resonate with you. I don't know, maybe not with some of your listeners, but I think that we make decisions throughout our lives. It's like we decide to go through a door, and oftentimes we make that decision. And even as a believer, sometimes we're not sure whether God is opening a door or whether we're just going through this door because we think it just seems right. It just looks right. Like I had the experience, like this will be okay. And we get into our head. We begin to try to reason or figure it out. But topics are like doors. So when we think about love, so here's a quick example. Let's just say one of our issues is impatience, whether it's driving behind a car, whether it's when the family comes, whatever it is, whether it's at work with a coworker, we're getting impatient because they don't meet our expectation or whatever it might be. But 1 Corinthians 13 tells us love is patient. Love is patient. So if we're asking the Lord about, should I do this? If the topic is like my career, what door are you opening for me, Lord, that's a career? What direction do you want me to go? And I'm being impatient, then that door of love, which is who he is, I'm not going to let him open the right door. I'm going to probably go through a different door. For example, when I came back into the States with my educational degree, I thought, oh, I'll apply for this. I applied for administrator. I applied for superintendent. I applied for all these jobs that I was qualified for with my degree, but no door open.
Mm-hmm.
And for about a year and a half, I sat with no income except for whatever he would bring me. I was working, doing whatever I could, little additional of that, thinking, okay, Lord, where's the door? And he just said, just be patient. Just be patient.
Waiting is hard. Very hard. Yes.
And so I think that we, as believers especially, need to be so cognizant of the doors that we try to force open and let him open those doors and reveal to us what's on the other side. But even I have found in my life the grace of God that when I've opened the wrong door and gone in and participated with whatever it was that I thought was the right thing, he always rescues me out, sets me back on the right path. He's so merciful.
Yep, that is nice. And that's why spending time with God every day is so important, because he will open those doors and close the ones he doesn't want you going into. And when you open one door, in a little while, it opens others. And so you don't know which direction to go, which is why you have to spend time with God every day. What's your quiet time look like with him?
I knew that's where you were going. That's so good, because last night we're doing a discipleship class in the church, and I'm leading with 3 different ladies, and our topic last night was on prayer and the importance of prayer. We were reading scriptures in the book of Luke and the book of Mark, where it says, often Jesus got away and spent time alone with the Lord. And why was that necessary? He didn't say or do, according to the book of John, anything unless he heard his Father say it or his Father say do it. So if we want to be like that, how are we going to operate unless we spend time with him? So I don't start a day without early morning prayer and the Word. I love the Word of God and worship, just being thankful. I'm so thankful for so much. And when I didn't have much, I would think, I want to be like Paul, right?
Right.
I know how to be abased and I know how to abound. I've lived in a third world country. I know what it means to do without. I know what it means to be in the mountains hiking and you don't have access to clean water. I understand the differences. And so I'm back in America going, wow, so thankful, so grateful. So being thankful every day, reading his word every day, reflecting. And I don't ever go into my quiet time without a notebook.
Right.
Because it's a dialogue. And so I may be praying and talking with him about something, but I'm expecting him to answer me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm expecting him to say some things back to me. I don't want to miss that.
That's a great one. Yep. There's one of my favorite books is 2 Chairs by Bob Bodine. I don't know if you've ever read that, but he talks about developing a pattern where you actually meet with God every day and imagine Jesus being in the chair next to you and just quieting your mind and listening for that still small voice, because that's where the ideas come from. God, I'm frustrated. This isn't working. I don't know what to do. Just calm, go quiet, and just spend time with Jesus. And eventually, there it comes. And you want to have that notebook to capture that information because it is so valuable. That's really cool. Do you provide coaching to people? I think you said that you've developed biblical coaching, but do you do business coaching as well?
Correct. Yes. So I think on the website, it talks about the different platforms. So business and education and then missions and ministry. So any of those. And of course, my spectrum is limited. It's with what I know. Now, my father was in 3 or 4 different businesses throughout my life. So I've got some experience in different aspects of business. We've done automotive. We've done retail. I've owned a drug, just different things that I've done. I've done a career service, just different things. But a lot of what I think, well, to me, it seems like common sense, but to others that they've never had that foot in the door, they don't know. I absolutely offer that as well.
Mm-hmm. Very good. If you had to start your life over again, is there something you would do differently?
I wouldn't choose some of the relationships that I chose along the way.
Isn't that true for all of us? Yes.
Yes.
So are there any other opportunities you would have gone or taken direction, or things that you wish you had done earlier?
If I had known the length of time that my parents were going to be on the earth, because I would have spent more time with them. I would have valued them more. I would have spent more time with them. My grandparents as well. I think about how long ago they lived and the knowledge that they had that they could have imparted to me if I had just cared enough about having some conversations with them. If I have any regrets, then of course we try not to live in regret.
Right.
It would be to have spent more time with the family members that are now not here.
That's a good point. Do you have any advice for people over the age of 50 who might be looking for a purpose, to encourage them to pursue that?
I would say the things that you've asked me about, the missions endeavors, the entrepreneurial parts of the development of the tool, and all that I did over 50. Going back to school to get my doctorate degree, I was over 50. I think I would say, number one, listen to the voice of God and obey. So important to obey. And then persevere. Don't give up. If God has said it, He will do it. Yes, we have a part, but don't give up. Perseverance is so important in our walk with the Lord. He is coming back. We don't know when, but until then, let's occupy. Let's do what He's got us to do. And I've always felt like, Greg, I'd love to know your thoughts on this as well. I've always felt like that if I didn't finish something that God put in my hands to do before I went to heaven, whatever that looked like, that I'd finish it on the other side. That it's just going from here to there. And it'll be just, people would say to me, why are you going back to school at your age? Do you think you'll ever? And it just go in the blank. And I would say, you know what? If I don't finish it here, I'm going to finish it there. I know He told me to do this, so I'm going to do this.
Where can people get more information about the Max Bit?
So we have a website, and it's www. Let me spell it. So it's THEMAXBIT.com. So it's themaxbit.com. It's our online platform.
Okay.
And I think you can learn a little bit about the story on the About page. And then there's, of course, a product page and my email. My phone number's on there. So, yeah.
And more importantly, there's a video that demonstrates how that product works, and you instantly understand how beneficial.
I know, right? Isn't that great?
Right. If you could get that video in the hands of all of the seasoned citizens who like to garden, you would sell millions of them overnight. So we'll try and see if we can promote that. As far as God's Way Enterprises, how can people get your resources from that?
So that is our ministry site. And Greg, that is www.gweinc for incorporated.org, gweinc.org. And that's the ministry side. And when I say ministry, there's business and education. All of that, for me, was centered in obedience to the Lord. So I didn't do my education apart from Him. I didn't do my business apart from Him. It's all because He directed it.
That's great. Thank you so much for your time today, Michele. This has been fun. You've done some amazing and remarkable things in your life, and I hope that it inspires others to engage in that same kind of process, to live out their dreams, to listen for God's word and be obedient to taking that step of faith that He's asking them to do.
Yeah. Thank you, Greg, and thank you for what you do in helping people over 50 know that your life is not over. In fact, it's only half. You got half your life left.
Exactly.
Let's get after it and get it done and have some fun.
I was inspired by Michele Morgan's story for several reasons. First, there aren't too many successful female inventors, especially those with no natural skill or formal training in mechanical engineering. Second, her explanation of how the idea came to her out of the blue and how God opened doors to bring people with money or specific skills to her was pretty amazing. Michele's story proves that when God gives people an assignment, He doesn't toss them into the deep end by themselves. He orchestrates funding and people to ensure the assignment can be carried out. In what I think is a brilliant strategy for a startup company, Michele worked with local university students to design her website, develop a logo, and help with marketing. Most of all, I like Michele's understanding that God gave her a business idea with the expectation that she would use some of the profits to help fund mission work, churches, and people working to build God's kingdom, either locally or around the world. Michele's company, God's Way Enterprises, works to share her wealth and knowledge with others. She offers business tips as well as answers to ministry and missions questions. Michele loves the idea of building God's kingdom by helping others start businesses as well. She published a book and launched several online courses. She also created a full-year devotional journal to help people develop the character they need to be successful in life and in business. Michele helps people to identify and analyze the many open doors before them, and then use faith to walk through the right doors. People can get more information about Michele's gardening tool at www.themaxbit.com. There's a video on the homepage demonstrating how easy it is to use the tool. To connect with Michele for ministry-related activities, visit www.gweinc.org. That's all I have for this week's show. If you'd like help in identifying a purpose for your life or to get help planning your next steps, I'm offering a complimentary brainstorming session to members of the Forward from 50 Facebook community. For details, connect with me on Facebook or visit www.forwardfrom50.com. I'll have another inspirational interview on the next episode of the Forward from 50 podcast. Thanks for listening, and if you like the show, please consider leaving a review wherever you download the episodes.